Hello, I'm Meredith Malone, curator at the Mildred Lane Kemper Art Museum at Washington University in St. Louis. And it's my pleasure to welcome you today to a conversation between artists Deborah Roberts and Adrian Octavius Walker with scholar Adrian Davis. Deborah and Adrian Octavius are both featured in the Outwin, American Portraiture Today, which is currently on view at the Kemper through January 23rd, 2022. The Outwin is a major exhibition organized by the Smithsonian Institution's National Portrait Gallery, featuring the finalists of the 5th triennial Outwin Bushiever Portrait Competition. Every 3 years, artists living and working in the United States and Puerto Rico are invited to submit a recent portrait to a panel of jurors chosen by the Portrait Gallery. In 2019, 46 works were selected from over 2,600 entries in a variety of media, including painting, drawing, sculpture, photography, time-based media, and performance art. Today's conversation marks the 4th and final in a series of live online talks with select artists from the Outwin. Both Deborah and Adrian Octavius use portraiture to depict the complexity of Black subjecthood, exploring themes of race, identity, beauty, and gender politics. In her collage on view in the Outwin, titled 80 Days, Deborah honors the life of George Stinney Jr., a 14-year-old boy who was executed in 1944 in the electric chair. The work, part of her Nesun Dorma, or None Shall Sleep series, brings to light this tragic story of injustice and violence during the Jim Crow era of racial discrimination. Adrian Octavius' striking photograph, Black Virgin Mary, portrays a contemporary young man with his green velvet do-rag undone, framing his face like a veil. The work is part of his series, We Matter, which explores male beauty traditions, how they function as a sign of kinship, and how they're perceived outside of their communities. Before we get started with our conversation, I want to acknowledge that I am speaking with you from St. Louis on the ancestral lands of the Osage Nation, Missouriya Eleni Confederacy, and many other tribes who were unjustly removed. We recognize these communities as we live, work, study, and benefit from this occupied land. Additionally, I'd like to recognize the William T. Kemper Foundation for their generous support, which has made the presentation of this exciting and important exhibition possible at the Kemper Art Museum. And now I will formally introduce our speakers. Adrian Octavius Walker is a mixed media artist based in Chicago by way of St. Louis. His work is inspired by the Black body, dynamics of the Black family, and archival work related to the African-American experience and the untold stories they share. Working in both film and digital format photography, Walker creates penetrating portraits influenced by his deep awareness of the nuances that pervade the human experience. He is currently represented by Point 2 Gallery in Oakland. Deborah Roberts is a mixed media artist whose work challenges the notion of ideal beauty. Her work has been exhibited widely, both internationally across the US and Europe. Currently, her work is on view in the solo exhibition, Deborah Roberts' I'm at the MCA Denver. The exhibition originated at the Contemporary Austin and features all new work, including collage, painting, a sound and video installation, and text-based works on paper. Deborah was selected to participate in the Robert Rauschenberg residency in 2019 and is a recipient of the Anonymous Was a Woman grant 2018 and the Pollock Krasner Foundation grant in 2016. She earned her MFA from Syracuse University in New York, and she lives and works in Austin, Texas. She's represented by Stephen Friedman Gallery in London and Suzanne Vielmetter, Los Angeles. Adrienne Davis is a feminist and critical race theorist who focuses on the law of daily life, or how law regulates and affects people's daily interactions, decisions, and identities. She has written extensively on the gendered and private law dimensions of American slavery, the legal regulation of intimacy, including interracial relationships, polygamy, and sex work, and theories of justice and reparations. She is currently working on several projects on the second generation of work on intersectionality, including misogynoir. She is currently working on 2 books. The first brings together her work on interracial intimacy, polygamy, and sex work. The second is based on her work as a vice provost for institutional diversity and is entitled What I Saw at the Diversity Revolution. She is the co-editor of the books Black Sexual Economies, Race and Sex in a Culture of Capital, and Privilege Revealed, How Invisible Preference Undermines America. Adrienne is also an art collector, and she is on the Board of Commissioners at the St. Louis Art Museum and the Pulitzer Art Foundation, as well as Opera Theater St. Louis. I have one last technical note before we get started. The conversation will run for just about an hour. We encourage you all to participate by asking questions using the Q&A feature in Zoom. Please be aware that we are recording this session. We will answer as many questions as we can in the second half of the program. And now I'd like you to join me in welcoming Deborah, Adrian Octavius, and Adrian.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Meredith, I want to congratulate you and the Kemper on bringing the Outwin to St. Louis. And for anyone who is in St. Louis or who can get to St. Louis, I really encourage you to see the show in person. It's very compelling. And thank you, Meredith, for including me in this conversation with these two great artists. Deborah and Adrian, I was so taken with each of your portraits, although for very different reasons. Can we start by having you introduce your portraits to us and maybe tell us a little bit about who your portrait represents, why you created it, and maybe a little bit about how it relates to your larger practice?
I'll let Deborah go first.
No worries. My portrait is of George Stanley Jr. He, like the introduction said, he was a 14-year-old boy who was executed in South Carolina in 1944. And I came across his work looking for young pictures of Dr. Martin Luther King to put into my work. And I saw his face, something about it spoke to me, and I knew I didn't really know his story until after I found the face, and I started researching more about him and realized that there were a lot of people who didn't know his story. And I wanted more people because it was so important. He died within 80 days. He was tried and convicted in 10 minutes. He was put in a men's prison. He died right before his 15th birthday. He was so small, he couldn't fit in the electric chair, so they had to pile books up and then put him on top. And it was just horrible. And we think of little kids today having to go through that type of stress and strain. I thought it was important that people know who he was. And because my work deals with young kids and I talk about beauty and identity that way, it's just fit right in. And so I did that piece. I put him on a striped prison uniform. They had no children's uniforms, of course, it's all for men. So they were really big and baggy on him. And he had no shoes. So I put him on these Timberlands and just modernized it. And just to say, this is some things that are still happening today.
Thank you.
The reason why I wanted Deborah to go first is because her work sat across from mine, and I stared at it for at least an hour at the National Portrait Gallery. Mostly not even paying attention to my own work, but just mostly learning about her work, because Deborah's work represents my work in a way of, this is the reason why this work was made. You know, We Matter represents Black men who are identified and looked at as a threat based on what they're wearing or just the color of their skin. Deborah's story and the layers behind her work in that particular portrait is one of the many reasons why this work was made. I wasn't aware of Deborah's work yet, but the alignment with it just made so much sense. And then also how everything was presented at the National Portrait Gallery and where they laid near each other made so much sense. I photographed this image in Oakland, California, actually where I was just at this past week. His name is Michael. If you were to see him walking down the street on a normal day, he will be identified as many things, not as a vet, not as a actual model, not as a working man, living and residing in Los Angeles, California. Just off the strength of what he's wearing, he would be probably registered as a thug, a thief, or anything under the sun, words that I just don't even want to talk about right now. And this series ultimately came about by accident. And I used to say by accident, but now I want to say it came about because it was needed. It started off as a friend asking me to photograph photos of their do-rag line. And when it comes down to me and subject matter and taking care of my sitters, I really want to present them in a way of them possibly not being able to not necessarily identify themselves, but see themselves in the light of this. And once I got these portraits back and I got the film back, I noticed it was something different. These weren't just stylized portraits of somebody I wanted to just sell a do-rag. I felt that these belonged somewhere else. And I also felt that there was a story behind it. And so I asked the crew that I photographed for, if it was okay for me just to sit on these photos. I'll give them some photos from the series, but it was a few that I wanted to just sit on. And I gathered some friends of mine that I trust. A good friend of mine, Ryan Austin Dennis, an amazing scholar writer out of Oakland. Another good friend of mine, Ricky Bird from St. Louis. And we just sat down with these portraits, looked through them, we had a conversation. I asked these two individuals how they made them feel, because they made me feel a certain way. And these are two people that I trust in the art world that can help me bring out much more within my own work when it comes down to diction and language. And we just came up with this whole realm of like, we matter, these different images, as you all will see throughout the duration of this talk, just showcase these men who are innocent, who could be identified as something else. And again, with Deborah's work and where it's set and the story with the works, I did know about that story. I learned about that story years ago. It was very, very striking. And the fact that it just set across to just, even with this connection here, when I learned that I was going to be doing this talk with you, Deborah, it's kind of like, I wasn't nervous or nothing like that. I was mostly honored and just like, appreciative of this alignment here. So I thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Can you each talk about your relationship to portraiture, and if this is a genre that you focus on solely, or if it's one among many of your interests and genres that you work in?
I'll go. I do use portraiture in my work only a little bit when it comes to like, I don't use normal people, like people you might recognize. I do a combination of faces to create the face. In the George Stinney work, I did only his face. It's the only time I've ever done that. One other time I think was with Linda Brown's image. It was so important to just use her face at that point. But my work is a combination of faces that create one face, and it's asking you not to see not to see Black people as this monolithic idea of Blackness, but multiple things, that we are more things than one. And so while portraiture is important, I tend to cut up the face a lot to manipulate that image in order for people to find the humanity that exists in all of us, but especially in Black people.
Thank you, Deborah. Can we go back one slide to our, yeah, I think this slide really captures how you work with the composites, and it's the faces that are typically the composites, or is it also the bodies that are the composite?
Right. Well, I can't see the slide, so I don't know which ones you're looking at.
Okay. So, I'm looking at okay, it just changed. I was looking at a long way to go.
A long way to go. Yeah.
The three young boys in the black and white striped shirts.
Okay. Oh yes. Yeah, that's a newer work that's done in 2020, and it talked about how people, how people see young boys as this threat, like we talked about before, Adrian. It's like, why are we looking at them as a threat? And then I put these little hats on them, these little childlike hats, to show that they are kids. They're just young kids. Their bodies may be different. They may be a little bit taller than normal. They may be seem older than they are, but they're just kids, and we have to see them as kids. So, and I put these big, prison uniforms on them, and then this was the only time in a long time. I really try not to make the kids look monstrous. I just try to make them look like it's a multitude of faces. But in this one, I felt it was necessary because I don't think that law enforcement and people who grab their purses, who run from kids like this, see them as just kids, you know, maybe go and play skating, do skating or skateboarding, or whatever. They're just children, and they seen it as a threat right away. So that was really important. I thought the absurdity to put those hats on their heads was just uniquely something that I wanted to do. So I will say this: I'm not seeing these slides of the works that are going past. I don't know if anyone else is. I'm not. So I don't know if we can work on that, but I'll talk about my work.
I think
Can you see them, Adrian?
yeah, I can see them. You just have to, Deborah, it's in the top right corner of your screen. Hit the view button and click around in that until you can like actually be able to see. Put standard view.
Yeah, I have mine on side by side, so I don't know if that or standard will work.
Okay, well, keep going, and I'll look
Okay.
for it. But I will stop my video because I hate when I look like an old lady trying to figure it out.
Oh, please. But you know what you can do there too? If you go to your little square and click in the three buttons, you can do a hide self view. So sometimes I do that when I'm not feeling it. But I think if we have time, I'd love to come back and talk about how you both use white space in your work if have time. But Adrian, what about you? Do you think of yourself primarily as a portraiture artist?
Yeah, a lot of my work is, all of my work is all about portraits, people, identifying them, and mostly not even basically allowing the other people, the viewer, to describe or be able to like learn more or want to learn more about the person or persons in the photo. These particular images from We Matter, again, it was just basically beyond the style of me capturing these do-rags. I wanted to show more of togetherness. I wanted to show more of like a brotherhood, and I wanted to show a lot of like, embracement, and this photo right here that you actually clicked on just represents that connection. These tied do-rags from across one another, and it's just mostly showing like this layer of trust within two Black men who they don't actually look like one another, but they have the same interests. We love to have ourselves cared for, taken care of Black women. We get our hair done, we got nails done, we make sure we're just done to the nines. That's all we're doing. If we come out the barbershop with our do-rag on, wearing a white t-shirt and a gold chain, and we walk the wrong way, it's trouble. I literally just got through getting pampered, and now you want to give me trouble. Going back to what Deborah said, just showcasing that those are just kids. Some of us, we're just kids too. Just thinking about Tamir Rice, thinking about all these individuals who were actually at the right place at the right time, but were still taking away from us. Thinking about Aubrey, who was just on a run. Like these individuals who do the same thing that I do. I'm a runner, and I had to find myself wanting to dress different as I run. I didn't want to wear Nike anymore. I started wearing Hoka because that's what white men wear. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to wear my shorts a little bit higher above my knees, you know what I'm saying? To just let them know I don't have anything on me. I'm just literally just trying to get a workout in. And that's just basically how I'm just trying to also showcase these individuals who just often wear white tees. They wear Chucks that are dirty. They have their pants rolled up, showing their socks. They just their regular everyday life. They just their regular everyday self. And like going through this whole series of work and the way I was just capturing it, I was doing myself a favor by putting myself in like an uncomfortable situation, uncomfortable spots, because I was being paid to photograph something for somebody else, but I was actually doing it in my own way, so I was taking a chance. So I wasn't even thinking about what I was supposed, like the actual assignment. I was thinking about what this can actually do for us moving forward. As Black men, as a people, and just like thinking about how much we do matter as one. And yeah, like again, this work, 2018, we're approaching 2022, and it's still like one of those works that speak to me. And I'm basically feel like I'm often trying to catch up with this work here. And so the work that I'm creating now often try to tie back with We Matter.
I thank you. I'm really taken by the combination of the combined power of both of your work and also of what you just said, because Deborah, I'm really glad that you talked about that that piece, that slide that we had up, because we have this long national history, or pre-national history actually, of the denial of Black childhood, right? For political reasons, for economic reasons. And I think your work really powerfully both points that out and pushes it back against that. And, Adrian Octavius, you were just saying something really powerful about the suspicion of Black leisure that we have in this country, right? That just Black people out being Black people, whether it's indulging in self-care or just, having leisure, not at work, right? Just not obviously working, triggers all kinds of threats and spectacles, right? And also, I think, you also really make a really powerful, I think, tragic point about how for so many of us, this ends up resulting in a kind of self-policing or community policing of what we call respectability politics, right? So we internalize it and we say, like, parents will say to their children, well, just don't wear a do-rag then, or just don't dress like that. If you just act respectable, then these things won't happen to you. So we internalize racism and white supremacy and structural racism, and then we police ourselves, or we police our children, and we end up engaging in self-blame about these things.
Right.
So thank you for your work and for kind of unpacking it for us. So figurative Black art, and especially portraiture, is having, I think, a beautiful and provocative renaissance right now in the art world. And we're seeing this coming across the Black diaspora, and we're seeing it from African artists. Do you two have thoughts about this moment in figurative art and portraiture in particular?
Personally, for me, just seeing the many, many artists out in the way they're approaching different mediums, when it comes down to paint, when it comes down to using objects. One of my favorite artists, Basil Kincaid from St. Louis, who uses materials found as far as like clothing and quilts and anything like dressed or worn, or it had some type of spirit or soul touching it, and he identifies this work as actual beings, just by the story. Another good friend of mine, his name is Muse, who resides out of Oakland. He's using chairs, identifying them as a story of Blackness and how they represent one another being stacked up on each other. And when you think of something being stacked up on each other, I'm thinking of something like how Black people hold each other down. It's just mostly like the weight is always on our shoulders, literally. The moment we walk out the door, the weight is on our shoulders. We're literally taking a chance. We're literally taking a chance by walking to work, by getting up at a certain time, going on the wrong side of the street. As soon as the police get behind us in the car, what do? We literally we start holding the steering wheel the right way, and it's just one of those things. I don't want to feel that way. It's just automatic, you know what I'm saying? So thinking about all the work that is identifying us in its different type of ways and this different type of stories, I feel as artists, for me personally, what I do as an artist, I love documenting other artists and their works. Some of my newest work that I just released yesterday is me photographing another friend. His name is Nico Washington, who's using his, like, when he grew up as a fighter, martial arts and stuff like that, and he's like painting boxers right now, and he's painting them in different ways. He's not painting them, identifying them as Black people. You automatically know they're Black people. But they're like different colors. They're blue, they're red, and they're these different colors. And it's showing that good fight. Again, going back to the whole expression of holding me down, holding us down. and just identifying us in many, many different ways. That's like kind of like my approach when it comes down to different works and just honestly studying the artists living amongst us today.
Okay, well, one of the things I would say about this moment that we're in, I was talking with one of my friends about it the other day, and yeah, it may be a moment, but it's a very timely moment, and we don't want this to be an event that's something that happens right now and is over in a couple more years, and then it never comes back. I think that we are here to stay, and our art is here to stay, and the type of figurative art that is being celebrated right now is very important, because I think the whole world can see that there is more than what is seen on the news about Blackness and the Black body and how that is perceived and how that is commodified. So I think this moment is especially important. I don't want it to be something, I mean, we all want to be in the canon. I know that's very important to me. And placing my work there and having people in the future talk about it is nice. I mean, we all know about the Harlem Renaissance and what happened then. I think it's important, but I hope this is something that is not just a moment. It is something that continues and be a part of the art world as a whole. You know, so it's important that we're getting this attention. The market is being very favorable to Black artists right now. So many more people are getting opportunities to exhibit in major institutions. Works are being collected, and things like that are very important. I mean, this is something that should have been done a long time ago. And while it's happening now, we're very happy for it, but we also want it to continue and not be something special, be something normal.
Right. Yeah, it's just thinking about what Deborah just said. I don't want our work to be looked at as like a zoo. You know, it's just this thing where you just come and see for the hell of it. You know, it's actually layers to it. You know, it actually means something. Learn about it. Don't just try to buy my work and turn it into an NFT because you feel like you can get some money from it. You know what I'm saying? Let me challenge you, ask you why you want to buy my work, you know, those things. Adrian Davis, we talked about this, you know, I'm not the artist that's going to always just allow anybody to buy my work. It's beyond that, you know. The money is very, very secondary for me. It's actually knowing and actually caring about me as an artist and about the story in itself.
You know, I'm going to jump forward then, and I'm going to come back to another question, but I'm going to jump forward for just based on what you, Deborah, did we lose you?
No, I'm still here. I cannot see anything, so I'm just talking.
Okay, because we can't, yeah, I hear you, but can you see her face, Adrian?
No, I can't see her face.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Yeah, did your camera slip up or something?
No, it's just not.
Oh, now
really.
I can see you again. Okay, now I can see you again. All right. So yeah, so based on what you were just saying, we had some conversations about the markets are tricky. I anticipate that we all probably have some entrenched criticisms of the way that markets and capitalism work. Even the three of us are all in the art world and art markets. You two as makers and me as a collector. And you were both working and I'm collecting at a time that many folks are calling for a recalibration of the power and economic dynamics of art markets. And, Adrian, you were talking about, really wanting to kind of, not just see your work as an object that can be traded like a pork belly or, stock, but, you really see it as something that you want to place in a kind of an ethical way, right? Or a way that aligns with your politics or your values. And we see, some galleries are beginning to do that as well. I'm just curious whether, do you all have thoughts about whether we should be rethinking how art profits are distributed between collectors and auction houses and dealers and most of all artists, or, some people are calling right now for what we call an economy of care, ethics of care. And Adrian, you introduced an additional layer that maybe it shouldn't just be purely a market where if you have the money, you can buy it, but maybe there should be some screening and some vetting. You said that, Deborah, you said right now, Black art's having a moment, it's having a wonderful moment. But we also know because of the racial dynamics of wealth that white folks as a group have more money than folks of color. Does that mean that they should be able to sort of, buy the art because they can outbid? I'm just curious to get any thoughts that you all have about this really fraught conversation, but important, really, I think, crucial conversation.
Right. I've had work go to auction a couple of times, and not all the work that we tried to buy it back. We didn't want it to go to auction right now. It is a market, primary the wealth is white market, but I made sure, and I do with my galleries, that Black collectors get an opportunity to purchase my work, that it does not all go into this one type of person, wealthy person. And I think it's very important. But, when you talk about equity in the market, when you sell a work for $12,500 and it sells for $3 million, and you see none of that, because either you had to sell the work or that was the price that the galleries put forth, and you don't see any of that. I think that there's a movement, a quiet movement going on right now where people are asking for there be some type of percentage given to the artists after these sales happen. Because I've sold a lot of work that I had to just to exist, to have lights, to eat, to pay my rent, and works that I really would have wanted to keep, but I had to sell them. And to see someone now turning that into profit, monetizing that work, and to make him even more money. And it's really hard to stomach, but that is the art market. That is the game that I'm playing in. And one of the things that I think that artists are hoping for is just a little bit more equity given to the artists. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, for me, I mostly think of two things. I think about the importance of placing yourself as a collector. I'm also a collector, and I'm fortunate to be a collector. I don't have the most popping collection possibly like Adrian Davis yet, but
my collection is popping because you are in it, Adrian Octavius.
Oh, well, Deborah Roberts, I don't know about me, but
I need to get you in it. I need to talk to Suzanne.
We all gonna have a talk after this about that, but for sure, like for me, it's just like really identifying those and supporting my friends and other people that I just look up to in the art world. And it's like, I want to own this work. I want to have this work because I want to be able to give it to my kids, and I want them to be able to give it to their kids. I want my kids to know and see, and they identify these figures and things on the walls like as valuable. So not as valuable as like a money valuable, as a, some type of like, I look at my art in the house as healing, it's like mostly really seeing all of these different works and being able to share these stories, with my children, and then they learn and they can tell their friends and stuff like that. It's like, I want my kids to go to school and brag about their dad being an art collector or a photographer of doing these different things. So that's like kind of first for me, and being able to place myself there beyond looking at a price tag of how much something costs. It's just mostly how it makes me feel. Second, when it comes down to identifying, I've also been in auctions, and my first auction, I can't tell you how bad I was sweating just to see who was those people bidding on my work. And not because the work was going for this price, it was mostly because of the whole why. Why are you bidding on this work? What?
Adrian Octavius, was with your auction, it sounds like when your piece went to auction, it sounds like maybe it was consensual, that you had approved it being at auction.
Yeah.
And with Deborah, just to clarify, with Deborah's, her piece, I think, was put at auction without her consent. Is that if that's fair to say? So I think
both times. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't been in a situation like that.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what I would do, you know,
Yeah.
personally.
That would be like if I was to take the piece and I'll just say, if I can just brag for a minute, because I was really fortunate to buy a piece by Adrian Octavius it's a beautiful, beautiful photographic portrait of Dick Gregory who came to Ferguson during the Michael Brown protests and that powerful moment. And I hung the entire time I was in my vice provost space of the university. I hung that photograph. So it was the first thing that people would see when they came in my office. And it was really, really powerful. But it'd be like if I took that piece and, put it at auction and didn't say to you, Adrian Octavius, hey, what do you want me to do with this piece?
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's just like we're taking a gamble with this, and then like me reading these different stories and just seeing that these things will or can happen, it's pretty frightening in a way, because again, I may not be able to work every single day, but then it's just like this work that I'm sitting on that probably didn't sell yet, I need to just sell just to keep my lights on, just to keep myself and my kids fed, my family fed and stuff like that. And it's those desperate times that, God forbid that I have to go through. But at the same time, just being able to have these work and treat it as like a treasure. And then somebody else who want to actually learn and sit down and have a conversation about me, about the work. And then we can like talk about other things, It's like, if you really want to help me, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't try to like really help yourself. I don't even understand how that makes a person feel good from the jump, but we are also speaking on these same type of people, Deborah, when it comes down to how they see us, period, as a threat, what I'm saying? It's just like looking at like, I don't really care for this. I just kind of see a fortune, versus it's like, I really want this. I really want to be able to talk to my family when they come over Thanksgiving about this and why is it important, like actually having a conversation around it. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you hope that people who are purchasing your work are going to be good stewards of the work, that they're going to take care of it. The intent is to grow it, to create generational wealth within the family. But that's not always the case. There are people who are out there who are buying works just to flip it. And if you're an artist that are in favor of hot artists right now, or blue chip artists, and they were able to get the work $20,000 or less, $5,000, and they can sell it for 125 or 275 or whatever the price may go, then they see it as an opportunity. I've been really fortunate. Like I said, I only had 2 works go into auction right now, but I've sold a lot of work, and I don't really want that to start happening. But it's one of the things, one of the pitfalls of being an artist out in the art world. It's something we have to live with until we change it. And so you just have to accept it. I mean, that day is coming for you, where somebody who's purchased work is going to take it to auction without your permission, and it's free. They bought the work, they own the work, they're free to do that. It's just it's not very cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said something really quick. You said generational wealth, and I love that you said that. I had this thing where I was talking to a friend about, and I talked to my daughter who's only 3, talk about like things and values and stuff like that. And I talked about this thing, you said generational wealth. And I also had this thing where I talked about generational self, and just thinking about self and how these things of self-reflection of this work and this Blackness and embracement, and how powerful it really is to be able to speak on something that you're also passionate about. I was fortunate enough to buy my daughter an original Emory Douglas piece because I named her after this man who I looked up to, but because of his work, and she sits behind it. So it's just like being able to pass that down and just like really being able to put ourselves in these positions, what I'm saying, to be able to tell our other, like our kin, our friends, and everybody else, is like, this is why I did this, not because of the wealth, but it's like of itself.
Well, I am going to we've got some great questions coming in from folks. So I'm going to go to those questions. But before I go to those questions, I want to say two things, because I'm an academic and it's very hard for me to shut up. So one thing is, I'm really taken by some of the language that you both just used. I love that phrase, Adrian Octavius, generational self. And I have some thoughts about, as Black folks, our relationship to contracts and property is very fraught. We obviously, came to this country, this world as the object of contract who were called property, right? And it's a complicated legacy. But I also have some thoughts about how maybe we can reclaim contract in the art world to protect artists, and especially to protect Black artists. I think that there could be some, as I teach and do scholarship and contracts, and this conversation is making me think we could probably do some pretty easy tweaking to give artists more economic protection in the contracts. And the other thing, the question we didn't get to, but maybe you can kind of get to it in the questions that we're getting from the audience, was about, you were both just referencing the power of commodification and Black bodies and Black subjecthood. And, I think a lot of us are really interested in the power dynamics of portraiture and whether race raises distinct power dynamics and how you navigate that. But I'll maybe see if you can weave that in as, thoughts about that as I take some of the questions that are coming in from the audience, if that's okay. So one question from an audience member is, what is it about the language of collage that compels you to make it your primary medium? And that's obviously to Deborah. Maybe we can show one of, thank you, Meredith.
Right.
So Deborah,
Okay.
if you can't see it, we're showing Harvest right now.
Well, I can see the art, but can't see me, but that's fine. One of the things that I would say why I chose collage as a medium moving forward to talk about issues of identity and beauty was that the work I did before was this Norman Rockwell type work, whereas I was talking about the Black romantic and how beautiful Black life really was. And then I saw a video of a basketball player, Ron Artest, going into the audience, pummeling this little kid doing a basketball brawl. And CNN played that over and over and over. And that was the image that was being projected out into the world, the whole world. And I realized that it was this one thing that they thought Blackness was, this brutality, this monstrous person. And what I was saying didn't make sense at that time. So I started to use collage to build upon this idea that we're not this one thing. And it just opened up these different ways of talking about being Black and what that meant to be a Black woman, and how to work and to push forward your own identity and your own ideas of who you are, your self-worth. And in this picture in particular, where I have Muhammad Ali's fist as it's going through, she's holding one hand, and then there's someone picking at her hair. Black women, don't touch our hair. We don't like that. So this idea of her looking directly at you and willing to fight for her own identity, and then she has the red stripes and the prison stripes and all those things that make up this idea, and a Blackness. So so collage.
This is a stunning picture. So the hand in her hair, is that a white hand?
Yes. Yeah.
And then the way you turn the prison stripe into the little gold ruffle there, that is brilliant.
Yeah, well, thank you. So the whole idea is, one of the things that it used to be that even me growing up, I never really looked white people in the face, and that direct glare is always important. Look people in the face, tell them who you are and how you want to be treated. And so that's why in all my works you see the direct eye looking directly at you, and it's telling you, this is how I need to be treated, and this is how I need you to see me. And so, this picture was done in 2017. So collage has always been this multifaceted way of talking about Blackness. That's why it's so important in my practice.
Thank you. And it's just such a compelling piece. For both of you, growing up, did you always know you wanted to be going into the realm of art, or did you have other dreams and aspirations? And when did art first enter your lives?
No, I at one point I thought I was going to be some type of scientist. I was really into the microscope and stuff like that. I was outside catching bugs and dissecting bugs for a very long time, all the way up to like age 13 or something. So it's just kind of like one of those things where once I honestly started to really like, it honestly went from me doing all those things as a child to I was kind of always on my own as a kid too, going to the store at an early age, you know, by myself, like doing a lot of things by myself and seeing things in my neighborhood that wasn't right, or seeing homeless people outside and just mostly just curious, you know. I know I was told not to talk to strangers, but I was literally talking to strangers, you know, asking them questions about what was going on. You know what I'm saying? I knew I shouldn't have, but it was just like I'm seeing somebody sleeping on the street. And it's just like, you know, confused, you know, where's your house? You know what I'm saying? It's like having these conversations and also seeing like, you know, being from St. Louis and seeing these beautiful dilapidated buildings that, you know, we have this beautiful red brick in St. Louis. And oftentimes you see the facade of the house being up front, but when you go in the back, the brick is gone. And learning that people come to our city to steal our brick because it's so precious, you know, and then learning about that. So I started getting to that whole thing of exploratory and looking into like different homes, and I'm coming across imagery in these homes of Black people. I have collections of like different photos. When I go out to like estate sales and stuff like that, I'm looking for Black stuff, you know, all the time to just collect. And I started to like gradually just kind of like want to be able to document things, you know, as I got older and like learned that I wanted to document things. What is my tool of choice to be able to do that? And I had this photograph memory all the time of things that I saw as a kid. And the camera was the only way, you know, for me. And it was until I really got into like leaving high school, going into college, is when I was like, this is what I want to do in some shape or fashion. I want to take photos. I want to make photos of people. I want to make them feel good. And I want them to see themselves different, you know, outside of how they see themselves in the mirror. I want them to be able to see themselves on some type of canvas or some type of sheet of paper. And, you know, we can talk about it, you know. So that's kind of like when I really, really started in college.
Mhm. Well, I knew I wanted to be an artist, you know, from the third grade on. And I didn't know what that meant, what it, you know, what life I was going to have with it. I knew in my 20s that it was a very tough life, but it was something I wanted to do. And I continued with it up until time when I, you know, went to New York and did some shows and things like that. So I've been a practicing artist pretty much my whole life. I didn't have another job, so this was it. I knew I wanted to get my message across, and I worked very hard at it. It wasn't very easy at times, but it was something that I felt like I was all in. So yeah, from the third grade on, I have been practicing art in some form.
That's great. So two very different paths for the two of you, I think. Yeah. What is next for each of you as artists? Do you have any big projects plans, any projects planned? Where do you see your art going next? And so Adrian, how long have you been how long would you say, you know, you've been a practicing artist? And Deborah, how long would you say you've been a practicing artist?
It's been like 14 years for me now.
Okay, 14. And Deborah, how about you?
God, aging me. I guess about 30 years. I think that I in my 20s, I really I never had a job. I was an artist. I figured out ways to sell and make work.
Right.
So yeah,
Okay.
for a long time.
Okay. So I'm curious to see if, you know, with you being at it like twice as long as Adrian, I'm curious whether you'll have different takes on as you talk about what's next for you and where you see your art going. You want to start, Deborah?
Sure. I have 2 international shows next year. One with my solo show at Stephen Freeman, and another big portraiture show that I'm curating. My thing right now is to grow my work, to get better, to create new pathways of talking about beauty and identity. So what's next is I think, like I said, I have a work in Basel right now. It's a 7 by 7 feet work. I'm going to get a little bit larger than that. I'm going to bring back some of my graduate school ideas of portraiture and a couple of those works, but I'm just really trying to push the envelope in my practice right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the shows and on being, so right now you're saying you have a work up in Miami, Art Basel.
Right. And
Just
also
for folks who don't know, the lingo. Yeah, so if they want to, I don't know if we have an image of that one up, or we probably don't have an image of that one, but.
Right. And also I wanted to mention also I'm doing a 2-person show with the state of Benny Andrews. That's going to happen in October at the McNay Museum. So Benny Andrews is one of my art heroes, and I'm so happy to be on just to be in his presence of his work and side by side with my work. So it's going to be amazing.
And where's that going to be?
At the McNay Museum in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, I may have to go down for that. I have a very modest piece by Benny Andrews from the Bicentennial series, a drawing that I love.
I love his work so much.
That's amazing. Congratulations on everything that you have. And so it sounds like the scale of your work, you said you have a 7 foot by 7 foot piece at Miami. So the scale of your work is really blowing up too.
Right. Well, I think that happens. It has something to do with being in lockdown for a while. And I think that when I came out, that the Black body for me did not need to be centered by whiteness, that it was an opportunity to really, push us forward and be seen while we're never not seen all the time. It's just this play between being invisible and visible at the same time. And so that happened during lockdown. And so this idea of being centered by whiteness is no longer very important to me. It has its own dialogue, but also the Black body does too.
Wonderful. Adrian, what about you? What's next for you? And we'll probably make this the last question, or I don't know if Meredith will tell us there's time for one more, but.
First of all, I'm seeing the questions coming in, so I've been trying to take pictures of them and I'll get to you all. You all can just probably like email me questions directly. That's okay. I definitely love to talk to y'all. But for me right now, one of my biggest things is I'm working on a hardback book of the whole We Matter series. This book will showcase images never before seen, talks from individuals who have experienced the work in real life form. And also it will show like the negatives and like the work that wasn't chose, to be identified at all. And that's one really big thing that I'm working on. The only thing that's stopping me right now is myself, because I'm like, have to write my piece. And it's so hard to write because I'm dealing with so much, I'm just trying to most like dealing with like how to talk about my work. I've been struggling with that as of late, because beyond saying it's like Black, everybody knows that my work is Black, you know what I'm saying? So I want to be able to say that without saying it, so it's just like really just like going in. And so that's one big thing I'm working on. And I have a solo show at the gallery that I'm represented at, Part 2 Gallery in Oakland, California, this upcoming August 2022. I've been working with 4x5 now. And so I'm starting to shoot, even more slow. I was shooting slow before, but now I'm really, really shooting like slow. And an artist that I've been following I've like been studying lately. It's like really helping me with that, with the whole 4x5 series. And so I'm just kind of taking my time with it, creating new imagery that isn't going to be able to, you're not going to be able to identify these individuals. You know, I'm kind of taking the toll of like, taking it back of like just pure face and just kind of focusing on other things of the body and stuff like that. So it's coming soon. I'm just gonna sit on the work like how I did this work for a very long time and let it work itself out.
I want to answer something real quick because a question came in about whether, can't artists protect their work through copyright? And I'll just say that you can protect and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, you could protect the image through copyright. Like people can't reproduce the image and not attribute it and pay for it.
Mhm.
But in terms of the object, it's different in other parts of the world, but in the United States, in our very capitalist system, once people acquire a work of art, typically it belongs to them and they then can't keep the value of it. It's like they would treat it like a piece of stock. If I buy stock from you, I own it. And then, if it goes up in value, I capture all of those proceeds. And I think that it works however it works in the stock market. But what a lot of people are saying is that doesn't work very well for artists because they're working without economic support typically, especially a lot of Black artists are working without economic support. So they're selling their art for fairly low prices typically so that they can get food on the table, send their kids to school, do all of that. And then, if I, Adrian Davis, buy it, I can sit on it for a couple of years. And then when it goes up in value, I can turn around and sell it and, I make a lot of money, but none of that money goes to the artists who can continue to kind of work. And a lot of people now are just saying we need to think about, I think did Cheryl Finley have the phrase, was it economies of care and ethical economies, and just kind of really think about how art objects maybe aren't like pieces of stock, because there's real people and real human labor behind them. Last question, and maybe we just answer this real quick because we're right at time, but I think it's so important. Do you both think about, the impact that your art has on the people who are viewing it? I'm thinking especially maybe about the George Stinney portrait, Deborah, how just really triggering that could be for a lot of people. And so do you ever think about how to care for the people who are, witnessing your art? And I really like that phrasing of it, witnessing it. Do you ever work with the galleries or curators about how to show the art in a way that also cares for the viewers?
Right. Yes, I tried to. It was hard doing those standing works. I can't live with the work in my house because it's so painful. And I know sometimes when works, tug at heartstrings or it's just this injustice, that is really tough. But we have to see these things. We have to witness this. We have to be witnesses of the past and the present because these things are still happening. So for me, I'm really happy that I don't want it on a bright pink wall. I don't think things like that. So I always make sure that my works are placed and positioned in a place of honor that honors the individual that exists in that work. His humanity is not being just consumed for visual pleasure. That people understand that this was a human being who went through a horrible situation and died needlessly. His conviction was overturned 88 years later, but he still died for a crime he didn't commit.
Right.
And I want to say real quick also, I wasn't sure if this was public, but congratulations, Deborah. When I was looking at the piece, and I'm just so compelled by it, Meredith told me that it's been acquired by the National Portrait Gallery.
Yes, it's not public.
It wasn't public.
No,
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I
It
said
hadn't been
nothing.
announced. It hadn't been announced yet.
Oh, okay. Well, everyone delete that.
Yeah, that's okay. It's really okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, since I put my foot in, I really apologize. Since I put my foot in it and everything, I just want to say though that how important I think that is that this image and this story becomes part of, the National Portrait Gallery obviously is the nation's history of representation. Right. And I just want to say congratulations because, like you said, this is a tough piece for any of us to have hanging in our homes, but right. The National Portrait Gallery is exactly where it belongs.
Perfect steward of this work. Perfect.
Yeah. Real quick for me to answer that, I try to make sure that my work is represented not just off like the strength of the photograph itself. I'm gonna just step out the way real quick and just talk on the side. Like I make actual scenes and I want people to come into a space where they can see this work. This work with We Matter, I made an actual bathroom. And I made this bathroom because it's one of those, it's a sacred place for Black people. You know, we get dressed, we get, you know, we do our hair, we look in the mirror, we make sure we to the nines. And I want people to come into a space where they feel present. And I want them to be able to interact with the thing. So the first time I did this exhibition was in Columbia, Missouri, at a friend's shop slash event space. And I had this whole space called Wave Check. As you can see, the bathroom in the back, you go and look in the mirror, you putting on your do-rag, you brushing your hair, you open up the cabinet to see the product that you use and you put in your hair and stuff like that. You seeing the incense on on the bathroom, on the toilet or whatever burning. You see the hair from the brush on the sink. All these things that we actually live our day to day. I want people to experience that. And then I took it to another level where I did like a performance piece with, I wish I would have had that up, with two Black men who were standing on crates and they were acting out the power of kinship, which that's the name of that photo, the do-rags tied together. These two Black men shirtless, standing in unison with each other. And there was a playlist that was going at the same time, filled with a bunch of gospel and trap music at the same time. It's because this is the work that I listen to as an artist, you know, and it's both like a folk tale almost. And I wanted people to witness that. So those who are in the room, one of my favorite artists slash little brothers, Colin, who's in the audience right now, who was there to witness that. He was there. He was documenting that, and I give thanks to him who was there. So I try to make these scenes for us to like live in, because this is what the bathroom looks like. You know, the country wallpaper on the wall in the bathroom that's just in one section. You know, that's how my bathroom look. And it's like, you know, it's not perfect. You know, the do-rag hanging and the towels and stuff like that. The decorative towels, you don't use those towels to wash your hands. You know, those are there for play. You don't touch those towels, you know. So that's how my house was, you know, that's how my aunt's house was. So that's how I want to answer that question. That's how I want people to identify my work and be able to witness my work. And I say it all the time. I made this shirt years ago called Black Women Over Breathing. And on the tag, it says, if you have to ask what this means, then it's not for you. So, yeah.
We are at time. So Meredith, do you want to, I mean, I just want to thank both of you, Adrian and Deborah for talking, you know, letting me talk to both of you about your really amazing practices and specifically the beautiful portraits that are at the Kemper. I'll say one more time, you know, I got to go through the show and I plan to go back again probably this weekend. So I really encourage people to see this if you can. And so thank you both for this conversation, which was really illuminating for me. Meredith, did you want to?
Yeah, I just want to thank you as well, Adrian, for all three of you for the generosity of your time today. This was a really rich conversation, and I'm so thrilled to have both of your works up at the Kemper through the extent of the show through late January 2022. So all of you out there, come and see these incredible works. So thank you all.
I'll be home in a couple of weeks to see it. Again, echoing Adrian, please, for those who are in St. Louis, go to the Kemper, see this work. It's really, really amazing. Adrian, thank you for just being present all the time. You have been every step of the way through this art practice of mine personally. So I thank you. And Deborah, I would love to connect with you offline somehow.
Okay, fantastic.
I'll send you an email or something like that for sure. And everybody, the whole WashU staff, thank you all for having us.
Yes, I echo all of that. Thanks to everybody. Thanks for all the attendees to come in. yes, please go see the exhibit. Thank you, Adrian. It was wonderful.
Great. And Deborah, I'll email you too I'm so sorry, but I'll email you.
That's
too.
okay. I mean, I have a couple of things that be announced in January. That's fine. Believe me, it's great.
All right, have a good weekend, everyone.
See y'all.
Bye-bye.